Brother, you didn't die. I mean, you almost did, but you didn't.
I almost died 10 times.
That was insane, dude.
This is easily one of the most entertaining moments in NASCAR this year, yet nobody is talking about it the way it truly deserves. We've got a YouTube star, a guy who built his entire career on burnouts, wild car builds, and running a small racetrack in Florida called the Freedom Factory, and somehow, he ends up in a NASCAR O'Reilly Auto Parts Series race car, going head-to-head with professional drivers at one of the most demanding tracks on the circuit, and then after the race, he gets on camera and tells the entire world exactly how it went. No spin, no PR talk, just raw, completely unfiltered honesty. And honestly, I respect it more than I can even express.
You're looking good out there, bud.
Oh, yeah, this is a little scary.
Yeah?
She's got some more power. She feels a little spicier. Easing into it.
First, some quick background for anyone unfamiliar with Cleetus McFarland. His real name is Lawrence Garrett Mitchell, and he was born on April 5th, 1995, which interestingly means he actually turned 31 on the exact same day this story exploded online. He originally began as the social media manager for a channel called 1320 Video, which is hugely respected in the drag racing scene. It was there that he created the over-the-top personality known as Cleetus McFarland, and it quickly gained traction. By the time he started his own channel, fans couldn't get enough of him. We're talking about more than 4.6 million YouTube subscribers, with content focused on insane car builds, drag racing, and full-on automotive chaos. He even owns his own racetrack, the Freedom Factory, a 0.375-mile short track in Bradenton, Florida, which he purchased and now hosts events at. So this is definitely not some random guy who just decided to show up in NASCAR out of nowhere. This is a true car enthusiast at heart, but there is a huge gap between loving cars and being able to compete against professional stock car drivers at 130 miles per hour on a 1-mile oval. And that gap became extremely obvious at Rockingham, because the reality is, Rockingham was never going to go easy on him. The Rock, as it's known, is a 1-mile oval that has long been considered one of the most technically challenging tracks on any NASCAR schedule. It demands patience, precision, and a very specific feel for managing a race car when everything gets tight and fast at the same time. And Cleetus McFarland, to his credit, is still learning all of that. He actually pulled double duty on race day, first running in the Arca Menards East race earlier that day, which acted as his warm-up, and in that race he was genuinely impressive, finishing 4th in a career-best performance. He said afterward that he had the leaders within reach for most of the race and felt more confident than ever before in a stock car. So his morning went really well. Then the afternoon arrived.
I told Cleetus to stay out of the news. Go race, have fun. My expectation, and I mean this in the best possible way, my expectation is for him to not be fast, right? Don't try to do any hero shit. Just go out there, run the laps, learn. I talked to him the other night. He's like, man, I don't want to embarrass myself. I hope I can be good. Don't even worry about being good. You don't be good in race 1. Think about the long game. Like, you're going to need a bunch of races for it.
Now, before we dive into the race itself, it's important to look at the advice Cleetus received beforehand, because it becomes extremely relevant once you see how everything actually played out. Dale Earnhardt Jr., a legend, the son of Dale Earnhardt, and someone who has clearly taken a real interest in Cleetus's racing journey, spoke about it on his podcast and revealed exactly what he told Cleetus prior to the debut. And his message was very straightforward. Stay out of the news. That was it. Run your laps. Don't overdo anything. Be aware of your position on the track, especially when faster cars are coming through to lap you. And most importantly, do not become the headline. As the race began, it didn't take long for Cleetus to find himself in exactly the type of situation Dale Jr. had warned him about. Within just a few laps, he was thrown into a 3-wide scenario, 3 cars running side by side on a track that realistically only allows space for 2 in that specific moment. And in that instant, by his own admission, his mindset shifted somewhere completely different from where it needed to be. He later said on camera, "I blacked out and thought I'm going to go past the leader. I don't know why. Just completely overwhelmed, reacting on instinct alone, which at that stage in his career is still very raw and unrefined." And that's actually a fascinating insight to hear from a driver, because it highlights the very real gap between loving racing and actually being prepared to compete at that level. Physically, he knew he was out of his depth. He said it himself. "I am way in over my head," is exactly how he described that moment. But here's the key point. He didn't crash. Somehow he managed to survive that situation.
I
was able to apply and like really enjoy the drive today. Wasn't scared. Normally I'm a little scared. I didn't feel scared at all. I felt like I gotta get these guys in front of me. I just didn't have the speed to get them, but my confidence is way higher. Now I'm gonna go in the O'Reilly's car and probably be, a little terrified, but.
And he kept going. Now let's take a clear look at the full picture here, because the morning and the afternoon told two completely different stories, and both of them reflect who Clear is as a driver right now. In the ARCA race, he was strong, he was competitive, he stayed close to the front, finished fourth, and showed genuine improvement. That wasn't handed to him, that was him in a car he understands better, on a track he had already tested on, doing exactly what capable racers do, working with what the car gives, and maximizing every bit of it. His teammate in that series is George Siciliano, better known as Squilla McNutt, who came home 9th, so the YouTube guys definitely made a statement in that race. But the O'Reilly series is a completely different challenge. The cars are quicker, the field is deeper, and the experience level of the drivers is on another level entirely. And when the main race began, that gap became obvious almost right away. He entered the next corner too aggressively, far too aggressively, and he spun out. Right there, caught up in the moment, he pushed beyond the limit and lost it. There was also a speeding penalty early in stage 3 that dropped him back to the tail end of the field. And then, with around 44 laps remaining, he spun again, exiting turn 4, this time triggering a full caution. He brought out a caution in his debut, which, yes, is exactly the type of mistake Dale Jr. had warned him about. He came close more than once to becoming the main story. He also got turned by his own teammate, Austin Hill, at one point during the race, which honestly is almost ironic. Your own teammate takes you out. Welcome to NASCAR.
Well, this is a hell of an opportunity, and obviously I got my ass kicked today, but I learned so much, and I made so many mistakes. I know at one point I drove down on a guy who was inside of me, recovered from that.
Cleetus, and then came the post-race interview, and this is the part where Cleetus McFarland won the internet, even while finishing 32nd and 6 laps down, because he walked up to that camera and did not try to make it sound better than it was. And the energy in his voice was not defeated, it was almost amused, like someone who had just survived something wild and is still processing it in real time. He called back to Dale Earnhardt Jr., Dan's pre-race advice immediately. He said, "I did want to stay out of the news more, you know?" Dale Jr. said, "Please stay out the news. That was my goal, but several times I just overdrove the corner." He said his manual, his entire directive going in, was to not ruin anyone else's day and to bring the car home in one piece. And on both of those counts, he delivered. The car was intact, nobody's race was ruined beyond repair, and he crossed the finish line, which is genuinely not a guarantee for a driver at this level making a debut in a series this competitive. He ended with the line that everyone clipped and shared everywhere: "Got my butt kicked, but I finished the race." 6 words, perfect, zero sugarcoating. I could not have written it better if I tried. He also gave a lot of credit to Jesse Love, his RCR teammate, the defending O'Reilly Series champion, for something that happened late in the race. At some point in the final stage, Cleetus found himself running directly behind Jesse Love, and instead of trying to push past him or get frustrated, he simply observed. He studied the line Love was taking through the corners, the way he managed his speed, where he braked and where he let the car roll. And Cleetus said that was actually one of the most valuable things that happened all day. In the middle of a race he was struggling through, he turned it into a classroom. That is actually a really mature move, and it tells you something about where his head is at. He is not just out there for attention, he is genuinely trying to get better, but there was also real support. Kenny Wallace, a NASCAR veteran himself, jumped in to defend Cleetus, saying he was a victim of the new quick movement, meaning the culture of instant reactions and instant judgment that social media breeds. He pointed out that the only way to get racing experience is to race. You cannot learn it any other way. And Mark Martin also backed him up. And it is worth noting that NASCAR's decision to approve Cleetus was not random. His presence had measurably boosted viewership for races he participated in. The Truck Series race at Daytona, where he crashed, viewership was up over 20%. So from a business standpoint, NASCAR had a very clear reason to give him a shot. That does not mean the criticism was wrong. It just means the world is more complicated than one side or the other wants to admit. Cleetus himself did not back down from the critics before the race either. When asked about all the noise, he said, "Look, I admire that energy."
Bob, I think you know at this point that I'm pretty in tune with what's going on in the social media world. Like, you know, this is my job. My job is probably more similar to yours than closer to the drivers. Like, I am a social media guy. That's how I got in this position. So I see it a lot. And, closer to Daytona, when I had the big screw up in the truck, I was feeling a little down on myself about that. At this point, the record is so broken of people still talking about it. I don't care as much. At the end of the day, all these guys can say whatever they want about me. But if Richard Childress called them and said, hey, want to come drive our car? All of them would have taken that opportunity too. And if NASCAR is letting me do it, I'm in.
You can agree or disagree with his role in the sport, but you can't deny he's fully aware of how he arrived and what his presence represents. He never acted like someone he wasn't. He recognized he was a social media figure who earned an opportunity thanks to his following and his real passion for the sport. He didn't sugarcoat it, and that transparency carried straight through the race and beyond. In a sport often polished and media trained on the surface, that honesty is genuinely refreshing. Now, and this is what makes the story truly intriguing moving forward, the question of what comes next is far from settled.
We just talked to the O'Reilly's official. He was really happy, but he said for an official approval for Talladega, it'll be...
After the race, Cleetus was already looking forward. He said he'd see everyone at Talladega, excited, energized, and ready for the next challenge. The catch is, that choice isn't entirely his to make, and that's where things get intriguing. Richard Childress Racing's Vice President of O'Reilly Series Operations, Danny Lawrence, spoke to the media after the race and was notably cautious when asked about Talladega. He said, and I want you to really catch this, they might ask us to run another race because the thing about it is we didn't get to do a live pit stop. There were a lot of things they wanted to see happen that didn't happen. Then he added, I would not be surprised if NASCAR didn't want us to run another race before we got to Daytona and Talladega. Everything happens so fast there that we all want to be prepared when we do take him there. That's the VP of his team essentially saying, yeah, we're not sure NASCAR will approve this yet, and that matters because context here is crucial. So right now, as it stands, Cleetus McFarland's path to Talladega is uncertain. NASCAR may ask RCR to schedule another race first, somewhere between Rockingham and Talladega, to get a cleaner, more complete evaluation of his skills. That could mean a last-minute April entry somewhere, or Talladega might be pushed to a later date. Either way, the decision rests with NASCAR, and they're taking it seriously. What's not in question is Cleetus's mindset. He finished the race, kept the car intact, admitted mistakes, and learned from a champion on his own team. And he said exactly what you want a driver to say. Finishing was the goal. Avoiding ruining anyone else's day was key, and there was plenty to take away from the experience moving forward.